long-range forecasting is his forte. I can just tell you a very quick thing, that my wife and I went to Venice at the end of June, and in March I had received from Piers the European forecast for Venice, amongst other places. And I looked at it in March as to what we were going to get. We were there for a week, and according to Piers, on the second day of our holiday there would be a torrential thunderstorm. I forgot all about it, got to our hotel in Venice, looked at the week's weather forecast, sit on your hotel desk, arrival day sunny, next day black clouds, and dead on cue, on that Tuesday, the heavens opened, and I rang him.
Did you?
I said, it's all your fault.
And then he bought some forecasts. Even better.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Philip. And I just want to thank you for actually getting this thing together.
Oh, it's all right, other people.
Because, well, okay, well, I want to thank you personally, because we have regular meetings at Weather Action, various and sundry, you know, and quite a number of them said, look, Philip, are we going to do anything about Paris? And then, really did. So I thought, because, you know, I don't have the time myself. Right, well, Paris. I've noticed about Paris, it's the same as last time I came, which is some time ago. One is they don't know how to make tea. Two, they're still speaking French. Now, concerning who I am my brother's brother, and he used to be my brother, and now I'm his brother. Okay. And of course, he's politically very active as the leader of the Labour Party. And I used to be, I suppose I'm a sort of retired Trotskyist, I don't know. I was in a Trotskyist group, the International Marxist group, for 11 years. And I've been in the Labour Party and got expelled for standing against on issues of housing and so forth. But I just wanted to say before I go on anything else that I thought Tom's piece, where is Tom? There he is, was actually very important, you know, because he's pointing out to us that our assumptions about all sorts of political whatevers are just not adequate. And I think actually this reflects the whole approach as well, that often we find it simple, both in physics and in politics, to suddenly say, yes, well the reason why this is happening is because they're left wing, or they're right wing, or, you know, we find some simple explanation. 90% of the time these explanations are grossly inadequate and actually misguide us. Okay. Now, on the things he said, you might ask the question, well, okay, well, these left people that are the core of the climate change, well, what are they? Well, one is, I know some of them are pseudo-Trotskyists who think that global warming nonsense, red-green alliance is a way of spending more money from the state. And that in itself is good. Some sort of socialism by the back door. Okay? And I know they say that. I know them personally, or did know them personally, and they believe it. It's a trick. Okay? And the UN bureaucracy are put in the same category. They want spending on themselves, so you know, they get on this bandwagon and they be part of carbon trading or the American stuff. However, and that's just a fact, and of course it runs completely against other things they stand for. We also have asked the question, where's the money come from that backs it? And this is then an entirely different answer. You see, finance capital backs the man-made climate change thing. The biggest backers of Obama were not these people giving 10p a week on the internet. It was Wall Street. It's Wall Street that loves Obama. Because of the gains they took in investment. Now, of course, I'm probably simplifying things there. But you see, you've got to get that understood. And they like that because it enables them to do more and more theft from the state. All this climate change stuff is direct theft from the state and therefore taxpayers. And just to raise more problems, you ask yourself, well, hang on, who actually really does want climate change or this campaign? You ask yourself, well, big oil industry backs the man-made climate change story all the way. Now, it seems like it's to force keep up oil prices. Except in the case of Saudi Arabia, they've got an entirely different agenda about why they're selling oil. They want to undermine Iran and Russia. But basically, big oil want high oil prices. So it's not surprising that Qatar funds Al Jazeera, which is the biggest climate change TV on the planet. Qatar, interestingly, also funds ISIS. Saudi Arabia also funds ISIS. Pakistan also funds ISIS. Turkey also funds ISIS. So, wait a minute, what is going on here? What is all that about? It's those people are creating chaos in the Middle East, which actually, funnily enough, puts up the price of oil. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on which is not simple. But to describe the thing as left wing is not right. It's not correct. And I would also say that mixed up with the left pseudo-Trotskyists, there are police agents in quite large numbers. And the climate camp, so-called, in Britain was largely run by police agents. And some of them got arrested for, well, we won't go into that. But just to say, it's not simple, and there are many wheels within wheels. But what we have to do is be objective about the facts and the science all the time. Okay. Now, I know I've opened loads of cans of worms, I think. Probably we'll have to discuss them another time, because I want to get on to something else. Do you mind about that? No. Okay, good. Right. Now, I want to do two things here. One is I'm going to introduce Peter Gill's stuff, which he gave in a presentation we gave in Parliament, in the Parliament building, which was just before this, part of the run-up to this. And I'm going to do it because it was good stuff. And then I'm going to go into my thing about the jet stream, what is completely wrong with the CO2 view, and the driver, which is.
Do you want me to press buttons?
Yes, I like people pressing buttons. You know.
This is it?
Yes. Okay. So this is Peter Gill's presentation. We'll go through it quickly, but what he shows is, he goes through what he calls the 6 pillars of the, he's got 3 there. Is that the first one?
That's the first one.
Okay. He goes through, he does come to 6 pillars and shows they are all nonsense. All nonsense, right? So he's got, well, they're meant to be relevant to human-induced climate change, impacts and options for mitigation. Okay, so go to the next one. Now, I don't want to go through all these, we'll just skip through this, but he talks about various computer models and how they're coming up with things which change. And I want to get on to do the next one as well. You will have time to read this, but I'm registering it because I believe you ought to see it, because he did it very well. So they keep on changing all what they believe is important and the percentage probabilities and so forth. And Christopher's dealt with the complete utter nonsense they come up with quite well on that. Go to the next one. And the next one. Right. And the basic thing, there could be an anthropogenic effect on climate, and it's almost all our fault that climate is changing. Well, you see, they make these statements, and as one could conclude that they actually knew what they're talking about, but all the evidence actually shows that they made these things up. So, move on. Here we are. These are the 6 points, the 6 AGW hypotheses, and it's very easy to actually dismantle all of them. Now, of course, you can construct their propositions in a number of other ways, but I think this is the fair way of doing it. So, the increase in CO2 over the last 200 years has been caused by burning fossil fuels. He disproves that. All anthropogenic CO2 emissions since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution remain. That's something they put forward and then they've changed it to most or something, but again, that is completely disprovable, just false. As a greenhouse gas, CO2 absorbs upwelling infrared radiation from the Earth and re-emits it in all directions, causing warming. Well, there's a lot of logical problems with anything to do with the radiation model, but the way they put it, he disproves that. The fourthly, the increase in heat evaporates more of the primary greenhouse gas, water vapour, as a consequence. There's a multiplying effect, and Christopher's already dealt with some of the feedback assumptions, which are shown to be nonsense anyway. Then we've got the methane, which he shows is nonsense, and the last thing, CO2 always is and has been the driver. Now I just go through each page very quickly. Okay, so Murray Salby deals with that, the causing issue, and Philip did that as well. It's the nonsense causing the CO2. The second general proposition all anthropogenic CO2 since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution remained in the atmosphere. Well, that is just not true. I mean, there's a lot of data which shows that's not true. The third one, the upwelling infrared, for reasons to do with the laws of physics and thermodynamics in particular. Yes. Yes. Well, there's a confusion there about rates of loss of heat rather than warming anyway, you see. I mean, it is, if greenhouse gases so-called have any effect, it is at the question of loss of heat from the upper atmosphere, I would say. I think he's correct there in destroying what they say. The fourth one is increase in atmospheric temperature evaporates more. Well, we know this multiplying effect is extremely suspect. Fifthly, the runaway global warming, which should be caused by methane. Well, we know as a matter of fact that in historical time, or geological time, there have been much warmer times, and there have been great melts of planet, and there has not been runaway global warming. If there had been, we would not be here. Okay, and the last one, the actual data as observed or estimated shows that CO2 is not a driver in any objective sense. Okay, all right, so I'd like to thank Peter Gill for that. He did it quicker, not as quickly as I did, but I think it's important to keep it in front of MPs, at least one of whom came, but the rest of whom were busy either talking about the war or the autumn statement, which had been deliberately vomited together with the war to confuse my brother and others. They've always been playing a victory over ending austerity, sort of. Okay, next one is me.
Oh, that looks like your.
That's right.
Yes.
There we go.
Instant hysteria.
So we're going to do some new advances in the solar weather effects and changes in the jet stream. And since we were on the politics, we'll start a little bit about the politics as well, and then we'll go on to what is much more interesting, i.e. actual science. I am interested in politics, by the way, but
You never know.
it's just a sideshow. Okay, next thing, please. Right. Now, about the Climate Change Act. You see, when it was passed in 2008, in it says that under Section 6, Clause 2, you have to, in the light of the science and the data, you have to review the implications of the Act, i.e. how much carbon tax charges or whatever system they use it should be. Now, our argument is to MPs, well, okay, what the assumptions are wrong, and therefore the whole thing has to be changed. Now, you see, the way the models work, standard models, is that there's a jet stream, which is the fast air, which if it's moved from the equator towards the poles, if it stays at the same speed, there we are.
Atlas.
Yes, hooray.
Mind the projector.
Atlas. You're going a bit too high then.
Roger.
Okay. So you get the jet stream is this faster air, because it's going at 1,000 miles an hour here, 500 miles an hour here. So when it moves up, it's going to be going at rapid speed relative to the surface, so it's going to go off in this direction. And in a warmer world, the jet stream is shorter. The area up there is cold. The colder part is smaller, and the warmer part is bigger. In a colder world, it's longer, and it also has more waves in it. More waves in it, actually, more than just because it's longer, but there are more waves in it. All right. Now, that is what is observed.
Oh, by the way,
which is opposite to.
this is a novel.
Is that a joke?
Atlas Shrugged.
Okay. So the assumptions of the Act are shown to be inadequate, therefore there has to be a reassessment. Okay. Next one. Oh no, back again. Don't go to the next one. Now, a number of the MPs are rather worried about British Steel being closed down, largely because of the very high energy costs. And the Chinese are not stupid enough to impose themselves high energy costs to close down their own steel industries, but leave it to clinically stupid people that run this government. And of course, they actually permeate all the parties. However, a number of Labour MPs said, hang on, let's just make an exception for the steel industry. So they could take energy at cost, which I think is an excellent idea. So already they're agreeing with this by implication. So I'm busy encouraging them. And the highest level of the Labour Party appear to be moving in this direction. Now, of course, it is it could spell the end of their belief in this. And my brother, as you well know, is very much in favour of discussion and debate, unlike his predecessor Ed Miliband, who just closed down any discussion at all on this, or even at any issues. I won't go into details, but there is quite a big difference, a different vibe between my brother. So, although the rules of the Labour Party move in curious ways, I think, the situation is coming where there's going to be more MPs are objectively going to be in a different ballgame. The DUP member, Sammy Wilson, hosted the meeting. He said, hardly a day passes where we don't have some economic problem which has been revealed due to impositions of the climate change. And, that, when it goes to the bread and butter, it's news. All right. So now then, we can come to the rest of me, I think. Right. Here we have, I'd like to begin with something that's happened recently. The 19th to 21st. This is one of our, what we call R5 periods, where there's a lot of solar influence from the sun, which means you see solar flares, you get big shock waves in the solar wind, and special events start happening. And on that, just as a general point, there's these correlations with solar activity and weather, and world temperatures in particular. The best correlations exist between geomagnetic activity and temperatures. Geomagnetic activity. That is the best correlations. The other ones of various measures of solar activity are not so good. So the geomagnetic activity is to do with particles hitting. Okay? Right, so 19th to 21st, we said we were going to have these active lows going zooming across, and they would make north winds in their tail, and which would give snow and so forth. And that basically happened in Britain, which we were very pleased with, on time, and the details of this were 5 weeks ahead. Next one, the American one. Again, the map here is even more dramatic, and often our maps for America are better than those in Britain and Europe, not just because America's a bigger area, there's more to it than that. But that's a pretty good match. Extreme winds, blizzards in there, and the very warm bit here, which we explicitly talked about, did turn out to be indeed very warm. Now, of course, the CO2 people just announced, it's all CO2, it's all making these extremes come. That's complete nonsense. They can't predict anything. I repeat, they cannot predict anything, except that they need more funding. Next one, please. Right, just a few facts about atmosphere. Well, it's the actual atmosphere which we experience, where standard meteorology says it all happens, is just a layer on the surface of the globe, no thicker than that. Aeroplanes fly at this level, 7 miles up, and this thing is 4,000 miles radius or whatever. Okay. And beyond that, we've got layers and layers and layers. So the Earth's magnetic field encloses or excludes the solar wind up to about 3 radii of the Earth out here, and a great long tail which goes back to the orbit of the Moon. So the idea, standard meteorology says weather causes weather. Everything that happens in here dictates everything that happens in there. And no, it's superficially, that's just silly. It's like when you have a bubble, a soap bubble, you say, well, everything that happens in that bubble, that little thin layer, depends on what happens in the thin layer. Well, that's just nonsense, isn't it? You just have to huff at it tinily, and you see the colours change, everything changes. I mean, you know, it's not isolated, it's a nonsense. But the significant things about it are there are signals in it. There's 22-year signals in the data, there's 60-year signals, there's 155-day signals, which correspond to this average periodicity of solar flare. So, where do these signals come from? Ask a standard meteorologist. Oh, they're internal to the Earth. It's strange that they happen to be the same as something happening on the Sun. I mean, how? So the Sun is driving it. The Sun, sorry, CO2 is driving the Sun. This is what it's saying. Anyway, how little CO2 is there? Because I don't need to ask you that, but the answers one gets in meetings are just, not about 50%, isn't it? But maybe 10%, maybe 5%, but yeah, 4%. Anyway, here it is. And I like your timing, sir. The amount of CO2 in the atmosphere is equivalent to 1¼ inches on the top of Big Ben Tower if Big Ben were to represent the atmosphere. And man's contribution to that is 1 millimetre. 1 millimetre, piece of birching on the top there, is responsible for all these storms, the extreme events which happen. Now look, it's a bit of a stretch. But okay, it could be a mechanism, but all right, if it's true that CO2 at least is doing it, then why, and if it's man's CO2 that's driving it, then we have to say, well, okay, the rest of the CO2 in the atmosphere, i.e. the 96% of it which goes in and out of the sea against man's 4%, which is responsible. The ants, the termites that produce 10 tons of CO2, have to follow man. They have to do what man wants. So when Christopher drives past in a car or something, or even goes on the Eurostar and produces some CO2, then the termites in the tunnel say, whoa, there he goes, and they'll start puffing and puffing and making some more CO2. I mean, they've got to move in synchrony if man is leading. And to say, to not believe that, well, it means that the CO2 can't be that important in the world. And Obama should be having a war on ants. He should be having a termite war. They should be destroying, burning, killing, plundering ants. They should be, because they're 10 times more troublesome than that. Am I right or am I right?
I think you're right. Methane is the...
Yeah.
It does then degenerate to CO2.
Yeah.
So you're right there.
Yeah, I'm talking about CO2 equivalent.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, next one. So anyway, we know they talk nonsense, but it's not because of the lies they tell, it's because it is nonsense. Okay. Next one. Right. Now, I usually prefer, you see, I think there's the kind of problem with the way we approach them, is that the way we go on talking about everything they say, implies there is some truth in it anyway. It's a bit like, if you join a medieval debate about how many angels could balance on the end of a needle, you can begin by saying, look, it's poppycock, I'm not even going to talk about it. That's really what we should do. But actually, if you're paid to talk about it, then you're going to carry on talking about it. And the more you talk about it, I mean, I'm not paid to talk about it, but a lot of people can have fun talking about it, and they will talk about it, and then people believe, well, there might be something in the argument that there are needles which support angels. Well, there could be. So, you see, the point I just say, you can dismiss the CO2 theory in 3 lines. I mean, I know Philip did it in 6, but you only need 3. In fact, there's no evidence for the CO2 being a climate driver. No evidence. The correlations are incorrect. The CO2 changes are preceded by. Right. End of story. Secondly, as I've already said, if man rules, then nature has to follow. Well, there is no physical reason on earth how or why nature would follow. And the third thing, of course, which is the underlying thing, the earth is dominated by the sea. And it is a physical fact, and no one disputes this, that in a liquid, the equilibrium between the dissolved liquid and the dissolved gas in the liquid and the amount of gas above depends on the temperature. The sea has 50 times more CO2 in it than the atmosphere. So, it's obvious that's what's going on. The sea changes temperature and the amount comes off. It changes. And it also means, on the side thing, that However, if you dissolved all the atmosphere into the sea, it won't go there because the temperature isn't cold enough. But if you did, it would have a tiny effect on the concentration of CO2 in the sea. But the idea of acidification, again, is utter twaddle. All right, so dismiss it in 3 and then get on with some science. Okay? Right, oh, this is more of it, sorry. We've done that, you know that. We'll move on to the next one. Yeah, you know about all the extremes they said would happen, and none of them did happen. Okay? Next one. I don't know if you've done much on the fraud.
I did that bit.
You did that bit, okay. We needn't do then the fraud stuff, because Philip has already done it. Next one. I do like mentioning this one though. If you can analyse it quite clearly, you don't have to go into lots of data, but you see these CRU data sets are available. The old one, the red-black one, is there. That was in 2001, and it started here, and it goes up there. Right? So the increase is, well, we start from that bit and go to the highest bit of it is here, is there. It's those two. So that is the increase that's happened from then to here. The corresponding increase in the modified or the new data set, yes, Minister, it is all data. Absolutely, Minister. It's all scientific data, the best data. It's just we had better data, so we used better data. And this better data says it was colder then and warmer now. And funnily enough, every time we've had better data, Minister, it's turned out to be better for your argument to raise taxes, Minister. Yes, Minister. Okay, Minister. Right. So anyway, that's the rise due to that, and the difference in the rise is the fraud, which is half a degree. So you've got to knock half a degree off current temperatures, and you get back to what the temperatures were in the 1940s. There's been no warming whatsoever. What is really going on, satellite data shows we are in a decline. Temperature phase. All right, next one. I think we're going to sweep out this stuff. Yeah, the ice cores, we've done those before. Oh yeah, no, 43,000, 26,000 years. If you analyse these, you can play around with, I haven't got a length scale, but I should. 43,000 year signals periods are found in here, and so are 26,000. And 3 times 43 is, you will agree, is 129, and 5 times 26 is 130. So every 130,000 years, if these two periodicities are valued, then we may get a certain combination of factors which is going to cause warming, say, which we will come to in a while. And of course you have 130,000 years between this interglacial we're in, that one, and so on. So there's 130,000 years going on there because of the 43,026. Now, what are these 43,000 years and 26,000 years? The 43,000 years is the periodicity of the obliquity of the Earth. The obliquity is the tilt, the sideways tilt. 23.5 degrees now, and it can go down more or less, you see. And that wobbles around, down, up, down. 43,000 years. The 26,000 years is the precession of the equinoxes. The whole goes around like this in 26,000 years. Now, if what's emitted by the sun, in terms of particles, and their magnetic connection to the Earth are important, then if the sun is tilted suitably towards, the Earth tilted suitably towards the sun, i.e. some phase of the 43,000 years is the best, and the direction, this is the amount of tilt, right, it's got to be right, and the direction of the pole is also suitable, then you'll get better warming if the particles are somehow causing warming. Well, this is a verb. So this is very good evidence for solar-driven effect. And it's also evidence completely against anything like the idea that cosmic rays are somehow the arbiters of solar effect. Cosmic rays are isotropic. So, they come from all directions all the time. So what the Earth is doing like this doesn't make a scrap of difference. Also, we'll come on to some other things in a minute. If we go on to the next one, which I think, that's the lag lead, you know about that. This is the observed facts, which you know of more than the minimum, cold winters, medieval optimum, more solar activity, and so on. And Dalton minimum, very important, the most recent one there. Early 1800s for cold winters. Okay, next one. You've seen that before when you were about it. Yes, I was going to find some more periodicity soon, but I'll come to them, I hope, anyway. Right, the spot, the CO2 spot, the hot spot. You've probably heard this, but the CO2 theory requires that there should be, as more CO2, you get a hot spot around the equator in the atmosphere. In fact, there's a cold spot. Now, they're arguing about, it doesn't work, therefore the evidence is wrong. It's the facts are wrong. Okay, well, I don't know. But the point is, what they said turned out should be there, isn't there? And I have got an explanation for a cold spot, which we discuss later. All right, next one. They changed the name from global warming to climate change for obvious reasons. Okay, next one. Right, before we do that, I just want to mention the 22 years, since we somehow seem to have lost a graph. Another reason for saying the particle, the effects are magnetic, is of course the just the 22-year cycle, which is the magnetic cycle. So, because the solar activity changes as an 11-year cycle, but the direction of the sun's magnetic field changes every 11 years. So you've got a 22-year magnetic cycle, and that is what is observed in temperatures. Again, if it was cosmic rays ameliorating or guiding or conveying the effect of the sun, then we would have to have an 11-year cycle, because the cosmic rays focus. So the cosmic ray theory is nonsense so far as affecting climate and weather is concerned. The actual effects are instant, immediate. You can see them on the sun, you can see the effects of the earth, you can see the jet stream changing. And this is the revolution from weather action. The question as to what causes weather extremes, I understand meteorologists will agree with this, is what the jet stream is doing. Big sweeps in the jet stream, going up and down a lot, will bring more cold air, like warm air going up and cold air coming down, and a lot of cold air can swoosh down over America when the jet stream goes very slow and very cold and so on, or you get what they call a displaced polar vortex. These changing patterns cause these extremes. The question is then, what moves the jet streams? And the answer we have is the jet stream is moved by changing solar activity. And CO2 does nothing, absolutely nothing, zero. And I was at a meeting of the Royal Society it was about 2 years ago now, but we haven't had one of these things in Paris since then, where they were suddenly bemoaning the fact that, oh dear, we've added all the CO2 and the jet stream is just the same. And I stood up and said, well, I'm not surprised the jet stream is just the same. It's because the jet stream has nothing to do with your CO2. It's driven by changes in solar activity. And they sort of looked at me and they mumbled, oh, well, I don't know if we could put that into the models, or I don't know about that. And they wanted to shove off and just talking about something else. Okay, but we can largely predict this. Now, I haven't told you all the theories about how it works, but let's just take it as empirical, but it does. Okay, next one. Oh, yeah, this was the graph I wanted, missed. Okay, 22 years in temperatures, but 11 years in data. Which is also 11 years in geomagnetic activity. So when you get the good correlation between geomagnetic activity and temperature, it has to be smoothed out over 22 years. And Svenssmark does tricks by smoothing stuff out to hide the failures in this theory. Anyway, I'm not. There's other good stuff in this theory, which is about dust and galaxies, which is something else. But next one. Yes, I've been attending electric universe meetings where basically this point's made there is that electricity in the universe is understated and undervalued by most physicists, in particular astrophysicists, me being one of them. And I think that's absolutely true. And just to sort of give you just a little few ideas which are worth understanding, is that there's going to be quite a big difference between odd magnetic cycles of the sun and even magnetic cycles, because since it's a 22-year cycle, and count the cycles as each 11 years, then obviously the odd numbers mean one magnetic domain and the even numbers mean another. And because the particles are coming out from the sun, you've got to say, well, okay, these particles are going to represent electric currents of some sort as well, or they can do, there are electric currents involved, they have to be because of the magnetic fields and things moving around. And what it turns out is, you just have to think about it, that in the case of odd cycles, the solar wind coming out in the plane of the ecliptic has got more electrons in than protons are out. And the even cycles are going to be dominated by protons or positive ions of some sort, which is quite interesting because, of course, these electrons are very light and protons are massive. So, you know, the way they're going to interact when they hit the Earth and so on, the magnitude is going to be different. And we've done some calculations to show that these are highly theoretical, we haven't published them at all, but the way the solar wind itself works can be entirely different than all even cycles in terms of standing wave patterns in the solar wind and so forth. Sometime in the future. All right, next one. Just to show you above the, way above the atmosphere, this is coming out to this sort of distance now, there's lots and lots of electric currents going on. Very complicated stuff, very, very important. And when you see an aurora, that is preceded by a lot of activity in this level. Okay, nothing to do with CO2. Next one. Now this is like magic. If you look at the sun, if on the Earth and Lord Monckton's the sun, because he does radiate things, radiates the truth and the light and so forth. As he spins around, every 27.2 days, there's a spot on his chest. It comes round again. Right? I mean, of course, the sun goes faster at the equator than the poles, but the 27.2 is a pretty good average, reasonably near the equator. Well, that happens to be exactly the same as within, yeah, same as the periodicity of the nodal crossings of the moon, i.e. the moon crosses the ecliptic every 27.2 days. And it's not 29.53 days, which is the full moon to full moon, it's 27.2 because the plane of the moon's orbit is going backwards. Right? It's recessing or whatever. But this is the same number, what the hell? What's going on? I mean, come on, this is... I mean, you say this to most physicists, oh, yes, it's just a coincidence, just a coincidence. Okay, question. Does this happen anywhere else in the solar system remotely? Is there a moon of a planet which has some type of periodicity, which is related to, closely, what the sun looks like as it goes round? Well, there is one other, Pluto. The relevant ratio in Pluto is 4.0. My whole number. Now, all of the other planets and moons and so on, and Jupiter, whatever, there's just nothing. There's nothing. What's interesting about these things? The moon is a very massive object compared with the Earth in comparisons, right? The moons of Jupiter are just little grains of sand compared with the football. You know what I mean? The moon and the Earth are very comparable. In the case of Charon and Pluto, they are even more comparable. Right? So you say there's some type of feedback going involving angular momentum, rotation, or something carried by the solar wind or something. So that's all I'm saying. So we think this is fundamental to what is going on. And wood has to be electrical because of there's magnetic fields involved in the solar wind and so forth. So that's just as a fact, but I'm saying that is really quite interesting. We're doing a lot of work on it, none of which has been published. Next one. The 60 years. Yes. If you want to examine what I've said, of course, the beats on average between the beats are when you take the difference of two frequencies or multiples of two frequencies to get them close to whole numbers. So you divide one frequency by another, take the first ratio, which might be 2 to 1 or 1 to 1, and then take the difference of 2 times 1 and 1 times the other. And so forth. And you'll get a beat when things are going to come together. So in the case of the 22-year cycle and the half nodal crossing, i.e. the 9 years, which is the crossing bit where the moon, plane of the moon's orbit crosses with the moon going one way and then comes to the same place going the other way, is going to be 9.3 years instead of 8.6. So 3 times 22 is 66, and 6 times 9, sorry, 3 times 22 is 66, yeah. 5 9s are 45, 6 9s, 7 9s are 63, so they're going close together. And if you do the beats properly, you get out with a figure of 60, which I think might be in the next slide. It is, there you are. An equation, right? Now, this 58 or 60 year signal turns up in a lot of things, a lot. And most people doing solar effects don't involve the moon at all, but I think it is a fundamental important. There's some people that do long-range forecasting using the moon only. Well, I think they're missing a trick. No, don't use the word trick. Missing a factor. Okay? You can study that at your level, but it's very simple. It's just about two notes combining. And I mention this because that is an actual, it's a kind of an observable frequency. This 130,000 years is a different type of period which involves multiples of things coming the same. It's a coincidence periodicity, but it's not a periodicity either, it's going to hiccup. This is like a pure note, which will be an envelope of numbers of things happening. These type of beats are about envelopes. Okay, if you look back, you'll see there is an envelope. You see this, that's the other one. That one. Go back one. That one. See, if you go to the top and bottom of things, it's an envelope type of curve. It's not, because the amplitudes there are bigger, which is a sort of thing you know when you just write these equations out and play around with combining signals. All right, 2/4, that one. Yes, this. Just to show you what is really going on, which is very, very, very much fun. Now, this was done some time ago now, but it's still relevant. Okay, so if it's an effective solar cycle, which is going to be an odd cycle, and the moon, what is the key thing where you can say there's going to be a warm solar cycle or a cold one? If you have an eclipse of the sun in the first 14 days of December, and you're near the start of near the peak of an odd solar cycle. So this is odd solar cycle, peak, trough, and then you've got an even bit. You see odd solar cycle, peak, trough, and so on. So you just coloured yellow the odd cycles, and wherever you reach the peak, you put the number. Okay, solar cycle 23, satisfied the demand. 21, bit off. 19, a bit off. 17, on. So there you are, peak there, peak there. And a bit more here, and here we have 11 here, and there's a lot of confusion here, and indeed a confused graph, and that one is possibly a bit late, but it does work. It seems to be quite a good guide. Now, what's so special about the first half of December? Well, the answer's nothing. You could use any date and any type of face, but the point is, it's best to have one where you can label it clearly with something like it. Okay. Next one. Now, what can we actually do? Is the sound level all right, by the way?
Speak up a bit. We haven't got a microphone.
Do you want me to wear one?
No, it's too late now. Just carry on.
Stand
Speak
on
up.
there, that'll help.
Stand up. Yes.
Just carry on.
Yes. Carry on.
On the platform?
That's better, yes, you can throw your voice better.
Ah, I can throw my voice better. Except I'm being dazzled.
Stand over there. Stand over there.
Stand in the corner.
A bit further to your left, you would enjoy that.
No. I need to come in from your left, because that's the way the chairs do. Goodies come in from the left. Did you know?
Who comes from the left?
Goodies. The goodies always coming from the left, the baddies always coming from the left.
Excellent, who's better?
I'm dead serious, just as an aside, we had a discussion about this with BBC once, and they wanted to do a little film for something, and they insisted that I was over here. No joke. And I was with someone who said, no, we're only doing it if Piers is there. And they said, no, he's got to be there. And they had a big argument. No joke. Absolutely, you can see that they wanted me to come in from the right. Because, psychologically, That is where Bailey's come from. If you look at...
So they got it right then, wasn't it?
Well, they did. Right,
Get it right to the
we said it no show unless I stand here. And they said, okay. You look at pictures in the media, the baddies always look at you from the right. Just have a look and analyse it. Anyway, right, what can we do? Long-range forecasting is being done and can be done by solar activity. Down to details of a few days. We do them now for the USA, Europe, Britain and Ireland. And we're about to expand our activity in America a lot. The consequences of which we hope to get a lot of money. If we get a lot of money, then we'll be able to have the backing to employ people, more people than I, and a few others, in order that I can have the time to actually publish what we do in a way which you haven't yet heard about. Which, of course, is really what I want to do all along, but we can't do it from a position of financial and political weakness and marginalisation. It's got to be stronger first, because hopefully we'll get there. We've done long-range tropical storm forecasts as well as detailed forecasts of America, and we've got these important breakthroughs of these red active periods, R5, R4, R3, which means big stuff will happen. Stronger winds. And typically in an R5 period or an R4 period, when the Met Office says there's going to be a certain amount of snow, you can double the amount of snow. Now, it's easy to use it for snow because you can actually walk out in the street and measure it. It applies to rain as well, but you can't easily do that in the street. And they work. Next one. Right, if there's any truth in this, is it all, can you hear me or here?
Better up there, I think. Yes.
Where? Here?
Where you are, you're standing fine. Speak up.
Speak up.
Yes.
Right, okay. Any weather parameter then will be essentially controlled by solar activity, modulated by magnetic links, which is 11 years, 20 years, modulated by some lunar effects, and modulated by other things such as stratospheric winds, which are probably, in fact, are driven by the sun anyway. But let's just look at that. Now, 5 times 22, for example, is a 130. I think 110. So 110. Oh, I've got it wrong. Let's go to the next one.
Next slide.
Next slide. There we are. This is what I wanted. 6 times 22 is 132, and 7 times 19 is 133. So the phasing of the magnetic cycle of the sun, and in this case the whole nodal crossing period. I mean, the 19 years is an eclipse period, the 18.6 is a rotation thing, but you know, you can play around with these. But I was just going to say, roughly 132, 133, 131 years will be the period between some type of coincidences. Now, I was at a dinner in Imperial College, some anniversary or something, in 2007, and there had just been loads of rain in Wimbledon. And I said, well, it's happened in 1875, and I've got data which shows from my friend who works in Trent Bridge cricket ground, and there's all the marks on the river Trent under the bridge about when it flooded. And there was floods in 1876, 1877, and so forth. Well, these corresponded later to big, heavy rain, wet summers in 08 and 09. 2010 you didn't have it, and you didn't have it in 1878. 2011 was a bit in the north, and 2012 the heavens opened as they had done in 1880. And when I say opened, I mean absolutely humongous amounts of rain. Now, it's not clockwork, so you can't just look back and say, oh yeah, same summer, this time. It's more to do with extremes, okay, only, and quite likely more to do with rain than anything else, but this is okay. Next one. So, here we have the Met Office's barbecue summer of 2007. And the Met Office's barbecue summer of 2008, and the third one, 2009. They were wrong, right. And they're still right twice. Okay, next one. Just a quick whip through important extremes we have predicted. Now, that means that some extremes maybe we haven't predicted, or rather we've predicted and they haven't happened in various types of areas. But in terms, we don't over forecast. That isn't how we get it right. We don't say there's going to be a hurricane tomorrow, and we say it all the time, and in which case we'll be right all the time, but no. Every hurricane will be confirmed, but it will be a lot of wrong forecasts. No, we're not doing that. Independent things, so we have real skill, okay? And this published real skill, unlike the absence of real skill from all others who have not published anything on the skill, because they haven't a skill to publish on. Right. Whipping through those, we have the super cold December 2010, very cold USA winter, tropical cyclone Yazzie, series of and Hurricane Irene. And they're all predicted. We're just going to go through some of these because they're quite realistic. Let's go to the next one, please. Can we show that we've got live? Have we got live?
I don't think we probably, I think it's going to be not worth trying. Sorry.
Okay. All right, if you press on the button when you do that, this one, it shows you pretty dramatic solar wind stuff hitting, coming out of the sun around the date we predicted, i.e. give or take a date. In fact, it was the date we said. And interesting, that stuff affected the ionosphere after 15 minutes. So there was an effect travelling at half the speed we're on. Okay? Now, it's nothing to do with CO2, nothing to do with cosmic rays modulating things. I mean, you know, that's a complete irrelevant sideshow. The cosmic rays is, in terms of weather, is as stupid as the CO2 thing. It doesn't mean there aren't things that cosmic rays don't do. Of course there are things that cosmic rays don't. But just because they do something doesn't mean it's them doing this. You know, it's like, it's not a dog, therefore it's a cat type of thing. You know, it's not a dog nor a cat. Okay, next one. Yeah, that's Leningrad, St. Petersburg getting hit, and then Moscow got hit. And the jet stream changed its whole pattern. You see, it's a whole system. Calling it a stream is a bit simple, I must say. But certainly, if one part moves in a major manner, then another part will also move in a major manner. So if it gets hit in some part, then we'll have a different situation in West Russia. We'll also get a different situation in Pakistan. You can say it if you like.
5 minutes.
It looks cool, doesn't it?
About 5 minutes, mate. Is that okay?
You're offering me 5 minutes.
5 minutes to wrap it.
Oh yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Next one. Yes. December 2010. I wrote this, and after I'd written, I thought, Jesus, is this going to happen? I was, stick it on a cat, it can only be chopped off once. I thought, well, okay. Well, it did happen because the Prime Minister of the time, who still is, David Cameron, said it had happened. He said it was the coldest in 100 years. And if he said it, it must be true. Okay. Now, in the middle of this, 15th of December, thereabouts, it was very, very cold. I was in the National Liberal Club. And I was phoned up by the BBC morning breakfast show. And they said, Mr. Corbyn, would you care to come on our show this morning, tomorrow morning? Because we gather you predicted this. I said, yeah, sure, I'll like that. Well, we'll book the taxi then. So no, they didn't ring back. So 2 hours later, I phoned them and said, what's going on? Where's the taxi? I've heard nothing. And a voice said, Mr. Corbyn, so we're sorry, we've I said, what? We're having someone else. I said, oh, really? Who? And they said, we're having the government's chief scientific advisor. Oh. And I said, he knows FA. And I used the Queen's English form of FA, a bit longer. And I haven't heard from him since. So, next one. Hurricane Irene. 85 days ahead, we said we'd have something that would go like that. And that is what it did. Now I mention the things like Harlem because they are examples of things which are going to happen more and more. This didn't actually hit the coast much, and we said it would be skilled. Sandy came later on. It did. And the reason why there will be more of these things is because they happen when any tropical cyclone, tropical storm which happens to be going that way, if it also meets a blast of cold air here, they will combine in power up, and you'll get a big storm which is likely to hit the USA. You see, some sort of.
Why is that going to happen more often?
Because there's bigger waves in the jet stream, so there's going to be more often there'll be rushes of very cold air coming down and hitting. It won't happen with every of them, but if the numbers of tropical cyclones is the same, then there's more of this. Some of them will turn
And so
very
for how
big.
many months or years will this anomaly in the jet stream persist?
It'll carry on well after 2035.
Right.
So what I said will also happen in China. That's the same side of an ocean. Okay, next one. 2012. Great stuff, yes. As an aside, in 2012, that was, if you like, a year of no sun. A bit like 1816, the year of no sun, when John Constable painted all those glum pictures of Britain while France was trying to invade. Why they wanted a glum country, I don't know, but that's what they did. There was also then, in 2012 and 1816, there was some sudden melting of ice, which the Admiralty reported to the Royal Society. These were cold times, this was the Dalton minimum time. So the idea that the melting of the ice is somehow automatically means it's warming is a nonsense. The melting of the ice happened because of some ocean current systems, probably connected with what's happening in the atmospheric current systems. Okay, next one, Newcastle, being hit, summer 2012. Anybody here from Newcastle?
Not anymore.
Good. Okay. Next one. Yes, America, we said, yeah, terrible storms are going to happen, and they said they would, the What's Up With Now website decided to, on the scientific blog, decided they would test our forecast because they just didn't believe what I was saying. Anyway, as the month went on, everything we said started turning true. So they then started arguing about, oh, you said giant hail, Mr. Corbyn. Well, it wasn't giant hail, it was big. Or it wasn't big, it was super giant. And, you know, I said, look, if you're going to argue the toss about the size of hail, we're not going to get very far, are we? And sure enough, after 2 weeks of assessment, they said, oh, we've had enough. We haven't got time for this assessment anymore. And they just took it off. This is science. But the point is, this is from lukewarmists amongst us. Okay? I mean, you know, if these people can't even debate with us, i.e. amongst ourselves in an objective way, we aren't actually going to get that far against the main entity. I mean, you know, it's a serious thing, actually. Next one. Southern stratospheric warming. So you can just read this at leisure, but we can now predict southern stratospheric warmings. They precede extra waves in the jet stream. Right? Stratosphere exaggerated, upper level gets heated due to solar activity. Lower level then has a sequence of heatings in it, and those transmit downwards and move the jet stream. And some of those waves in the jet stream will cause snow. So these things precede snow. Next one. There we are, the snow. Me being photographed by my son, and that I made the snow. Me. He took the picture. Anyway, it was very cold. But just to show you that it doesn't mean it's going to be cold everywhere. Now we are going to have some southern stratospheric warmings this January, but it doesn't mean it's going to be warm or cold here. I mean, it's going to be very cold somewhere, but I'm not telling you where. All right, just to annoy you. I'm going to tell you a bit about winter in a minute. Move on. Yeah, that's Constable again. Move on. Jet stream a long way south, 2013, we predicted that, and I won the British asparagus competition on the day for market of field-grown asparagus. It was going to be late, because of the late spring. Next one. 2013, we predicted in May there was going to be a big storm going to hit southern Britain, and more importantly, it was going to hit the Low Countries and Northern France. Okay, that did happen. Next one. There it is. It was, well, some people called it after me, which I thought was very nice, but the Met Office called it after a saint. And I'm not a saint, as yet. But my brother could be. St. Jeremy. Anyway, it happened. That was very nice. And there was stuff on the sun preceding it. Next. Yes, we didn't predict this thing, but I show it because often the warmest produce this Typhoon Haiyan day. Well, it depends where you're from, but Yolanda is if you're from the Philippines, Haiyan is if you're from America. They said this was proof of man-made climate change, because it came just before some conference or other. So actually, it was the R5 period was happening just as this thing was approaching the Philippines. The R5 turned on when it was just out here, and it empowered it. And there we have it. On the 4th of November, it was a tropical storm. By the 6th of November, it had reached Super Typhoon 5. That was driven by the sun, nothing to do with solar activity. If we'd been in just a normal weather, no R5 period, it would have just been a normal typhoon which would kill a few hundred instead of a few thousand. But either way, the UN aren't that bothered about it because they don't bother to take our forecast to find out the reasons why it happened. Again, it's the point about adaptation not being cared about by the powers that be. Next one. Lies about Arctic ice. I didn't tell you that. You can just look at it at your leisure. But they announce when the ice disappears, but they don't announce when it reappears. So this is what is going on. Solar activity drives the solar wind, which affects the magnetosphere. That is modulated by the moon. That changes the jet stream. That changes the circulation patterns at a lower level. And incidentally, the average temperatures give us the average amount of CO2. The gas of life, not death. What really happens is not the other way around. CO2 is not driving the weather is not down below, is not driving the jet stream, that is not driving the ionosphere, and that is not driving solar activity. That's a wrong way of thinking. And I can say with 100% confidence that Christopher driving his car down the M1 will not cause a solar flare.
You sure?
See, the CO2, well, there's a lot of stuff we could say about CO2, which I won't go into because there's no time. Okay, it could be we've never had it so good in terms of the weather. Because mostly the connections are not so good as this, and we've just got ice ages all the time. All right, next one. The most important graph to remember, if you remember anything, this was Tebow. He started out the climate skeptics email group years ago, and is now dead. But he compared this was 10 magnetic cycles apart. He drew smoothed out estimates of solar activity, and they match. Right? Now, we know that on average, if it's moved out for more than 22 years, this activity will correspond to temperatures. That's the nuclear fact. Now, this is what happened 220 odd years ago. This is what's happening now, and we are here. We are at the knee of this thing. So there's only one way down. Cold, cold, cold. So this is around 2035. And there's various other estimates of this type of thing. Now, of course, to say they're all independent estimates is probably not the case, because they're like to agree with each other. I mean, you know, modelers on our side have the same problems as modelers on the other side. They're not always that confident in themselves, so they just look for a friend who agrees and so on. And that's not a good way of proceeding. But anyway, there's, I think, a number of independent ways of looking at this also produce this type of thing. I.e., we're in a mini ice age. But it doesn't mean there's not warm bits as well, because the jet stream's going wild. It's best to call it a wild jet stream age. The general trend of which is cooling, which includes mini ice age conditions.
Time's nearly up, Piers.
Which what?
Time's nearly up. We're going to have to clear the building in 10.
Oh, I see, and I'm talking too long. Okay, right. So another 1.25 minutes. The moving jet stream, the jet stream taking low pressures further south in terms of the Atlantic also causes, as the tail of these lows sweeps southwards, i.e. it's a north wind on the tail, it causes the surface currents to prefer to go south. So the jet stream, the Gulf Stream of currents, which has got two tracks. There's one that goes to Iceland and one which goes to Spain. The Spain one gets stronger, the northern one gets weaker. And what happens during the mini ice age then is there's generally a lot colder there, and a lot less currents here, and you get freezing up of the sea in Northern Ireland, for example. That will happen.
Thank you.
Okay, next one. I'm sure you agree. Important things about the mini ice age is just a list of them, but one very important thing is you get more extremes, and another important thing is you get more extreme hail. More hail events because of more rapid lapse. You can read those at your leisure. Next one, yes, what we should do. I'll end on this and not go into the CO2 further discussion, which is very illuminating but kind of boring in some ways. This is what we should do. We have to enjoy life, enjoy the planet. Accept that man cannot change climate. And get rid of all these carbon taxes and so forth. In fact, we want more CO2 because it makes plants work better. And we want to save British steel because we like driving cars and things like that. There are on-screen policies about defending biodiversity. We should support those completely, but not make them dependent on the CO2 line. And of course, dare I say, we could actually use science to help save lives in terms of our long-range forecasts. So I will end there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick point I'd raise with Piers, just to support really what he's saying about resonant things, but between the timings of beat periods and so on.
Yes.
Something I noticed quite recently looking at the data, if you go back to what Rhodes Fairbridge and Hilaire Marcel looked at with the beach ridges around the Siberian coast and Hudson Bay, and they found that there were regular ridges every 45 years, extra big ones every 360 years.
Okay.
And I puzzled about that for a while, but what I found was that in the North Atlantic, Harold Indistad found 72-year long-term tidal, lunar tidal things. And then, of course, there's in the temperate zone, there's the 60-year thing that you discussed.
Yeah.
What's the beat of 60 and 72? 360. Bingo.
Very good, very good. If you've got more on that, I'll be happy to talk about it. But yes, it's worth looking at all these figures. Then you've got to decide which ones, try and understand their relative importance. Next one. We've got 2 minutes, I understand.
You rubbish Sven's mark there. Could you expand on that a bit? Because to turnip heads like me, it seems some plausibility.
Oh, right. Well,
I mean, I don't mind discussing this at the bar.
we might have to, but
Yeah.
I would say, well, I told you the periodicities that must be consequent on his theory are not there. You've got to have 11-year cycles in world temperatures. If it's the 11-year cycles of the sun, i.e. the scalar magnetic field of the sun, which is excluding or not cosmic rays. That has got to be an 11-year cycle. There is not an 11-year cycle. There's a 22-year cycle. The 11-year cycle is minuscule. It's not there. It is in some bits of data, but you look at the world whole, not there. So that's the first thing. The second thing is just understanding the physics involved, right? The total energy of cosmic rays is 1/300th of the total energy of solar particles. And the cosmic rays themselves only have an effect when they've had interactions and broken up into smaller bits of lower energy with a higher cross section. I mean, people that don't know anything about particle physics don't realise it, but very, 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 very high energy particles go straight through them. That's all they do. They've got to crash into something, and the bits crash into something else, and into something else, and into something else, before you get a shower of lower energy things. Slower particles interact.